This place really isn't for you. You're poor, so you should live like a poor person. Exactly. Why don't you just go home and do some piecework or something? I think you're both mistaken about something. My name is Sarah. Exactly 1 year ago, I divorced Matt, who was my husband. I truly loved Matt and wanted to spend my life with him. However, Matt said to me, "You've really aged." Well, I am 40 now. It's surprising how quickly we both reached 40. Yeah, but I just can't deal with older women. What? Upon further discussion, it turned out Matt's love had faded as I aged. In fact, he had already started dating a younger woman. Tracy is only 25. But she seems attracted to my mature charm. She's a good woman, not arrogant and annoying like you. So, I'm leaving you. What? It's decided. Thus, Matt unilaterally announced our separation. Of course, I didn't just agree to it so easily. I gathered evidence of his affair and got compensation from both Matt and Tracy. I hate that about you. You're too smart and arrogant. Right. It's so shameful and disgusting that you're after money. They were angry about my compensation claim, but as Matt's wife, I was within my rights. Eventually, I received several $10,000 from them and got divorced. They seem to have remarried, but it has nothing to do with me. I've been enjoying my life, focusing on my new job since the divorce. However, on a rare day off when I went shopping, I ran into Matt and Tracy. I immediately turned away upon seeing them, but they noticed me and approached. Oh. Is that Sarah? Long time no see. Oh, I thought who it was, but it's just the dull ex-wife, Sarah. What are you doing here? They went out of their way to come over in the crowd just to make snide remarks. I couldn't just ignore them after that. They looked at me and said, "What's wrong with shopping on a day off?" I don't think I deserve any complaints. Huh? But, it's not exactly a complaint, but... What are you trying to say? I don't want to waste my time talking to you. Don't get so heated. We're just trying to give you advice. Advice? In response to my retort, Tracy and Matt gave an incomprehensible reaction. They snickered in a mean-spirited way and said, "Yeah, advice. You don't have much money, right? So you need to use it wisely. We're not saying you shouldn't shop. But this place has quite expensive stores, Oh, for Matt and me, the prices are reasonable, but for Sarah, they're expensive, right? That's not the case. Don't pretend. Indeed, this department store in front of the station cannot be called cheap by any stretch of the imagination. But I do have enough money to refresh myself on a rare day off." Even when I denied it, Matt and Tracy still smirked and said, "Don't hide it, I know. You don't have money, right? That's not true, though. You don't have to lie. That's why you were so desperate to get compensation during the divorce a year ago, right? I heard it through the grapevine. Your annual income is $12,000, right? If that's the case, you must be barely scraping by, maybe even dipping into your savings? That's why being here doesn't suit you. Wouldn't it be better if you went after the clearance items at a discount supermarket after the time sale ends?" Unable to contain himself, Matt began to laugh at Tracy's words. They continued to laugh uproariously, looking down on me as they spoke. "When you were married to me, your income was about $50,000, right? How did it drop to $12,000? Were you fired for being incompetent and can only do part-time jobs now?" Well, either way, it was lucky for me. Good riddance to a woman earning $12,000. Poor thing. No money, youth, beauty, or prospects. It must be so sad to be poor and old, isn't it? I couldn't understand why they suddenly started saying these things. But I somewhat understood what they wanted to convey. Apparently, Matt had heard about my current situation from someone we both knew. That's how he came to believe that my annual income was $12,000. Certainly, with an income of $12,000, it would be difficult to shop at a department store. It might be true that I often aim for clearance items due to the daily struggles. If Matt and Tracy believe that my income is $12,000, I can understand why they look down on me. However, there's one thing they got wrong. My annual income isn't $12,000, though? What? What do you mean? Exactly what I said. My annual income isn't $12,000. That can't be. I heard it from Anna herself. Anna? Ah, I see. Matt, panicking, mentioned the name of my friend. That's when I realized why they were mistaken. Anna has been my best friend since high school. She's been close even after I married Matt and has visited our home many times. So, Matt knows Anna. Anna said it was bad, having only $12,000. You and Anna are best friends, right? So, you wouldn't lie to her. Sarah is a poor person with an income of $12,000, right? A few weeks ago, Matt apparently saw Anna by chance. Though they didn't speak directly. Matt and Tracy entered a cafe where Anna happened to be sitting nearby. There, Anna was updating an acquaintance about her recent life. Matt and Tracy, thinking they might hear something about my miserable life, eavesdropped. So, you know, she's been my best friend since high school, $12,000, isn't that crazy? It really feels like a different world. They couldn't hear the entire conversation due to the distance between the tables. However, Matt and Tracy caught such words from Anna. That's why they understood my income to be $12,000 and were surprised to see me at the department store today. Matt, it seems like you're misunderstanding something. Actually, Anna wasn't talking about an income of $12,000, right? Well, yeah, but if it's not about the income being bad, then it must be the savings, right? Indeed, that would be bad too, right? After snatching so much compensation from us last year, and at 40? If you only had savings of $12,000, that would mean you have a terrible spending habit, wouldn't it? Matt and Tracy again made up their own story, chuckling together. But I, tired of being misunderstood, finally said, "It's neither about income nor savings. Can you please stop making assumptions and looking down on me?" Huh? How dare you speak so boldly, considering you're an old lady? Exactly. So, tell us, what is the $12,000 about, you poor person? It's the rent for where I live now. What? Rent? You pay $12,000 a month for that? What the heck is that? That's impossible. And why would Anna know such private details about your rent? That's when I told them the truth. My annual income isn't $12,000, nor is my savings balance. Actually, I started a business 6 months ago and became financially comfortable, which allowed me to move. I now live in a so-called high-rise condo, where only wealthy people reside. The rent there is $12,000 a month, something I had shared only with Anna. If you know the address, you can easily find out the rent. I trust Anna, so I told her about it. No, but that's impossible. Impossible? What's impossible? Because there's no way you could lead such a lavish lifestyle. It seems Matt wants to turn away from reality. Indeed, when I was married to Matt, I was just an ordinary employee. Under those circumstances, I couldn't afford to live in a high-rise condo with a monthly rent of $12,000. But I started my own business. So, I do have enough money to live well. Moreover, while I'm currently renting, I also own several apartments. I have 3 for investment purposes, and I've bought 5 apartments which I rent out to relatives. It's like you're living in a different world. And to think someone like you, an old lady, is living that life. Tracy, I may not be young, but I've worked hard and earned my money. I don't deserve to be looked down upon by someone who can't do anything just because they're young. After finally saying what I've always wanted to say to Tracy, she looked like she was about to cry. As Matt glared at me in defense of Tracy, I said, "You two were saying earlier that I don't belong in this department store, right?" "Yes, that's right. Someone like you shouldn't be coming to department stores. You might have a bit of money, but it's obnoxious, like a nouveau riche." Even after realizing I have money, Matt refuses to apologize. Instead, he continues to find fault and complain. But it's Matt who doesn't belong here. "You know, I've kept in touch with your parents even after our divorce. And Matt, I heard that you've been prioritizing your newlywed life too much, arriving late and leaving early from work. Your position and salary have decreased. Your parents were lamenting, right?" "What? My parents talked about that? Wait, hold on. I haven't heard anything about a salary decrease." No, Tracy, that's not it. This is just a malicious lie from Sarah." "Then why are you panicking? Suspicious much?" Despite our divorce, I've remained on good terms with his parents. We exchange Christmas cards and sometimes talk on the phone. After mentioning the story I heard from Matt's mother, Tracy began to glare at Matt. "Let's go home immediately. We're going to check your payslips properly. I've always suspected something was off since you've been hiding them every month, but to think your salary decreased. That's a lie, I tell you." "Tracy, why would you believe Sarah's words? If it's a lie, then showing me your payslips should be no problem, right? This is a good opportunity, let's check them now." "Don't be so harsh." The two of them ignored me and started arguing in front of me. They spoke loudly despite being in the department store, attracting a crowd around us. I didn't want to be associated with them, so I left them behind and went on my way. Later, I shared this incident with Anna as a funny story. Then, unexpectedly, Matt called me. "Hello." "Oh, Sarah. Good, you haven't blocked my number, so that means you still like me, right? Let's get back together." "What?" I was frozen for a moment, unable to comprehend Matt's sudden declaration, before asking him to repeat himself. However, Matt conveniently interpreted my response as interest and started to elaborate on his own. Apparently, a few weeks after I left, Matt and Tracy had a severe argument. Tracy was angry at Matt for hiding his salary reduction, and Matt accused Tracy of being after his money. Their argument escalated, and eventually, Matt said to Tracy, "Basically, even if my salary has gone down, you could just work. Why is your annual income lower than Sarah's? She's making enough to live in a place that costs $12,000 a month." Understandably, Tracy was furious to be suddenly compared to his ex-wife. She retorted, "If you want me to earn, give me some time to work. I'm too busy taking care of a useless man in his 40s who can't even do basic household chores. Besides, it's embarrassing that someone your age can't earn more. You're too incompetent to even serve as an ATM." Their argument led to a separation. Neither was willing to compromise, only wanting to benefit at the other's expense, which prevented any calm discussion. Eventually, they decided to divorce after another discussion yesterday. You know, marrying Tracy made me realize that there's no value in just being young. A woman with earning capabilities like you suits me better. So, marry me again. I want to live in a fancy high-rise condo too. What are you talking about? Are you serious? Why should I have to take care of someone who can't even do household chores? Don't be so cold. I'm healing, right? If you work and take care of the house, I can quit my job and heal you. Come on, it's a good deal. Sarah, I love you. There's no way I'd be healed by someone like you. If I wanted healing, I'd get a dog or a cat. After separating from Tracy and being demoted with no prospects for promotion, Matt seemed desperate to have me support him. But as I told him, there's no way I could love and support someone who can neither work nor do household chores. Don't say that. Like I said earlier, you didn't block my call, right? That means you were waiting for me to contact you. So, you still love me, right? That's not it at all. I didn't block you because I forgot you existed. Stop twisting things to suit yourself. This is making me sick. So, I hung up, wanting no further involvement with Matt. Before forgetting, I blocked his number on my smartphone. Sounds like you had a tough time. It's my fault for unintentionally sharing that story with Matt, leading to this mess. I'm sorry. No, Anna, it's not your fault at all. Really, don't worry about it. It's all Matt's insensitivity that's to blame. I hurriedly reassured Anna, who apologized to me. Truly, neither Anna nor I did anything wrong. The fault lies with Matt and Tracy, who only thought of themselves. But now, I won't have to deal with Matt anymore. I've blocked his number, and even if we meet in town, I'll just avoid him. Matt's parents know my address, but they won't share it. I can now live peacefully. Months later, Matt's parents informed me that he had been fired from his job. I haven't been able to focus on work lately. I'm thinking of taking some time off at my parents' house, so prepare my room. Having lost his job, Matt sought refuge, but his parents, having disowned him after our divorce, refused. Moving forward, Matt will likely be too busy with job hunting to involve himself further with me. So, I, too, wish to forget about Matt and move on with my life.
Catch the perpetrator quickly. And make sure the hospital takes its fair share of responsibility too. Has the police been contacted yet? No, we thought to wait until your husband arrived and we had a talk. We will consider how to proceed with your daughter's case from here on in the hospital. Of course, we will do everything we can. What do you mean by everything you can? Be specific. They said they're still figuring it out. The room my daughter is in has surveillance cameras, right? Yes, patients who are severely ill and cannot move on their own are usually placed in rooms with cameras in most hospitals. This is because they cannot press the nurse call button or call for help if their condition suddenly worsens. You missed something critical anyway. That means the cameras are useless. It's not feasible to monitor the cameras 24 hours a day. However, they are always recording. This is for the purpose of reviewing what happened in case of an issue. So, there's a chance the perpetrator is captured on the camera? It's highly possible. Can I also see the footage? How about watching it together with the police? My daughter has been in a vegetative state for 5 years following an accident. Yet now, she is pregnant. My husband is in a state of agitation, constantly confronting the doctor. This makes it difficult to progress, so I speak with the doctor myself. There are cameras in the patient room, so checking the footage should quickly reveal the perpetrator. However, my husband interrupts our conversation. I think checking the footage is a waste of time. Why would you say that? The camera is blatantly installed in the patient room. There's no way the perpetrator wouldn't notice it, right? They must have taken some measures to commit such an atrocious act, don't you think? But we have to check, don't we? Even if you check, it's pointless. Plus, if the perpetrator is captured on camera, do you really want to see what they did? I don't want to see it, but he's right. Checking the footage means seeing something I don't want to see. It seems best to leave this to the police. We finished talking with the doctor and returned to my daughter's hospital room. At that moment, my husband had a smirk like a villain. I felt uneasy about our conversation with the doctor as well. My trust in my husband is crumbling. Later, I overheard him talking to someone. The content was unforgivable. I am Lindsay, a 42-year-old housewife. My husband, Phil, is 1 year older and a company employee. We met in a university club, where he was a senior and I was a junior. He was a leader whom everyone relied on and was admired by many girls. I was one of those many girls. Despite the presence of many cute and competitive rivals, I was content just admiring him from afar. However, due to some misunderstanding, he approached me. I once asked him, why me, out of all the people who adored you? Lindsay, you get down so easily, right? I just couldn't leave that alone. Being prone to feeling down has always been my complex. However, it seems that this trait worked in my favor, unwittingly triggering the classic love technique of wanting to protect someone. A year into our relationship, Phil started working before me. Since there's only a year's difference between us, I soon joined the workforce as well. There's a big difference between being a student and a working adult. And I felt like Phil had become an adult before me, which made him seem even more dependable. Indeed, Phil, having entered the workforce first, proved to be reliable. I can't do this anymore. I can't remember anything, I keep making mistakes, getting scolded by my seniors, and causing trouble. Going to work has become so painful. In my first year as a working adult, it was inevitable for me, with my fragile mental state, to fall into the September blues. If the current me were beside me, I'd slap myself on the back, saying that feeling work is tough and not wanting to go to the company is something anyone would feel. And I'd force myself to go to work. However, representing those with a fragile mentality, I want to say that at such times, one is at the absolute bottom of negativity, and even standing up feels painful. Some people might even drop out of the workforce because of this. But I had Phil. Causing trouble is a newcomer's job. It's probably okay to worry when you're not told anything anymore. Being completely ignored and not told anything is much scarier. The fact that they're still saying things to you means they still have expectations that you can do it. Plus, if you really don't fit in at your current job, I think it's okay to consider changing jobs. Everybody is changing her job after all. Maybe you can still be treated as a new graduate and have an easier time finding a new job. Instead of telling me to hang in there, Phil always cautioned me not to overdo it. I, who had always believed that being at full throttle was correct, felt as if a fog obstructing my view had lifted. Thanks to Phil's advice, I was able to relax a bit more at work and continue with my job. I thought there was no one else as dependable as him. 3 years after becoming a working adult, we had a shotgun wedding. Our relationship was nearing 5 years, and with work becoming stable, I felt the air of marriage around us, so finding out about the pregnancy didn't make me panic. Rather, I thought it was a good opportunity to get married. although we hadn't met each other's parents yet. Both sets of parents knew about who we were dating during our student days, and that we had continued our relationship into our working lives. Therefore, when we announced the pregnancy, there was no anger, but rather, both sets of parents were delighted. My parents seemed to have wanted me to marry quickly, and Phil's parents were eager to see their grandchild's face. After informing our parents about the pregnancy, I, wanting to have the wedding before my belly grew too big, hurriedly prepared for the wedding. We had a smooth wedding ceremony, and then our daughter, Ashley, was born. Ashley. You're so cute today. Hey, she just fell asleep, don't wake her up. Phil was completely smitten with our daughter. As a result, he would rush home at the speed of light after work and on weekends. He wouldn't stray more than 3 feet away from her. I often worried that Phil was spoiling our daughter too much. However, being smitten wasn't all bad. Phil was proactive in taking care of our adored daughter, allowing me to smoothly return to work after my maternity leave ended. Our daughter grew up healthy and reached the age of 12, about to enter middle school. However, she now spends her days on a hospital bed. On the way home from tutoring with 2 friends, Ashley was hit by a car. Although they were crossing the pedestrian crossing when the signal turned green, the driver, distracted by his smartphone, didn't notice the signal and crashed into them. Though I dislike saying it, it was a stroke of luck that her friends only suffered fractures and their lives were not in danger. However, Ashley was left in a vegetative state. She can open her eyes but has no cognitive function and cannot move her body at all. I felt that Ashley had taken on all the misfortune for her friends, and I resented those friends who were safe. I know it's misguided, but without doing so, I couldn't maintain my sanity. You stay by Ashley's side. I'll take care of all the troublesome matters. I'm sorry. Please. Being on the brink of mental collapse, all I could do was stay by my daughter's side. If I were to hear about the accident or the treatment now, I wouldn't be confident in keeping myself sane. Phil, sensing my mental state, took care of everything from dealing with the person who caused the accident to the hospital and various procedures. Phil was indeed dependable, but he must be suffering too. I felt guilty for imposing on him like this. I felt even closer to a mental breakdown because of my own helplessness. After a while, the compensation for my daughter's damages was paid. This money was designated for Ashley's future, and Phil separated it into a different account. When Phil showed me the bank account for verification, it had a 6-digit number written in it. Normally, this would be an incredible amount of money. Also, thanks to this money, there is no worry about our daughter's living expenses for the time being. However, as much as I am grateful for this money, looking at those numbers fills me with a sense of emptiness. So, we'll be paying for the hospital bills and whatnot from here. Looks like it. Once this money runs out, we can't ask for more, right? What happens if it does run out? I wonder if our income will be enough to cover our daughter's hospital expenses. Somehow, these numbers seem like a time limit for how long we can spend with Ashley. Don't say things like that. Ashley will recover before this money runs out. But she might not. Even if she doesn't recover, we were told to keep talking to her without giving up, right? For 10 years, 20 years, there have been cases where patients recovered after 30 years. Stop talking about such gloomy stuff. Sorry. You still seem to be struggling. I'll take care of all the paperwork and stuff from now on. Just stay by Ashley's side like you have been. Sorry. My mental state is on the verge of collapse. There's no way I can work in this condition. So I quit my job to become a full-time housewife and stay by my daughter's side. Though I say housewife, I don't do much around the house. So perhaps unemployed would be more accurate. I became fully devoted to my daughter, and Phil continued to work. Initially, Phil would visit the hospital almost every day after work. However, after a while, the frequency of his visits dropped. And I started to harbor resentment towards him. A year after our daughter's accident, my frustration reached its limit. Why don't you come to the hospital more often? Don't you care about Ashley? You always come home smelling of alcohol, what are you thinking? I unloaded a year's worth of frustration on Phil. But it seemed I wasn't the only one harboring frustrations. You could at least do something around the house. Look at this living room. It's filthy and cluttered. And it's not just here, it's the whole house. The reason I come home late is because you don't cook, so I eat out. And it's not just you who's suffering because of Ashley. Is it so wrong for me to escape into alcohol once in a while? I was probably in the wrong. Being yelled back at by Phil made me feel like I had come back to myself. Looking around the room, what didn't bother me before now seemed dirty. I'm sorry. It's not just me who's suffering. And yet, I've been pushing everything onto you and complaining. No, I was wrong to yell too. You're right, I haven't been visiting the hospital as much. I'll try to visit Ashley more from now on. Our exchange of frustrations seemed to clear the air between us. After reflecting on our own actions, we resolved to work together for our daughter's sake. Since then, Phil, who hadn't visited the hospital for a few months, started coming 2 or 3 times a week. I began to take care of the house and even started a part-time job. However, dealing with the hospital and understanding the system was complicated. And since I hadn't been involved from the beginning, I decided to leave these matters to Phil as before. In exchange, I would take care of everything else. This arrangement worked for a while, but soon, new problems began to emerge. You haven't been to the hospital this week. You didn't come last week either. Is work that busy?
Yeah.
It's been really busy. That's why I'm coming home late. Phil started to skip hospital visits again, and his return home got later. Moreover, he claimed work was the reason for his lateness. But he would come home smelling of alcohol. I could confront him with my frustrations as before. But I understand that Phil also has his struggles. Given our situation, it's understandable if there are some ups and downs in his mental state. As someone who experiences frequent mood swings myself, I can somewhat understand how Phil feels. I hope that he will start visiting the hospital again after some time. With that thought, I decided to keep an eye on Phil's behavior. However, letting Phil's fluctuations go unchecked also means I can't rely on his support. I now go to the hospital daily and have started working part-time. I could have avoided overexerting myself if I had gradually gotten used to the workload. But I fell into my old bad habit of pushing too hard and ended up making myself sick. You never change, do you? I'm sorry. No, it's my fault too for breaking my promise to visit the hospital. From now on, I'll definitely go to the hospital on weekends. In return, you need to rest. But, you're the one working hard. Everyone has different capacities, so it doesn't matter who works more. If you don't overdo it and take breaks appropriately, you won't end up making yourself sick, right? Besides, if you go to see Ashley looking tired, she might worry, right? You have a point. As a result of this exchange, we both reflected on our actions. And Phil started visiting the hospital again. 3 years after our daughter's accident, Phil has kept his promise to visit the hospital every weekend. When Phil goes to the hospital, I rest at home. It's not that we take our daughter's situation lightly or slack off in our care for her. Her treatment is a long-term battle. Over these 3 years, I've learned that living efficiently, with this in mind, is necessary to overcome this lengthy fight. As for our daughter's condition, it seems to me that she has improved slightly. Ashley, it's nice and sunny today, isn't it? We couldn't go out much last week because of the rain. Are you happy? I push my daughter's wheelchair through the hospital's courtyard for a walk. Ashley has started going for walks, always accompanied by a male nurse. Although a female nurse primarily provides Ashley's care, a male nurse helps her from bed to wheelchair for walks. I see my daughter basking in the sunlight, seemingly enjoying herself. Others might not notice any change in her expression, but to me, she appears to be smiling. Previously, there was no change in her expressions, so I like to think that she is recovering. The signs of recovery aren't just in her expressions. When I hold her hand and talk to her, it seems like she responds by blinking. Though some might think it's wishful thinking, there are clear changes. Ashley has started to eat. Eating means she can now swallow paste-like food through swallowing training. But the main source of nutrition is still through a feeding tube. Nonetheless, this development fills me with hope and expectation. After our walk, when we return to the hospital room, a female nurse comes in. It appears this month's hospital bill hasn't been paid yet, likely an oversight by Phil. I leave the hospital interactions to Phil. So a simple phone call to remind him about the missed payment is all that's needed. However, Phil has been on a business trip since yesterday. He could make the payment from his trip, but it feels wrong to trouble him with just the payment. I decided to go home and look for the bank book containing our daughter's funds. I thought, wasn't it here? I had thought the bank book would be in the shelf where we keep ours. But I couldn't find our daughter's. I thought, it must be over there. There's a shelf where we keep documents and contracts related to the hospital, the accident, and other matters, likely including our daughter's bank book. As I suspected, the bank book was there. But its contents were not what I expected. I thought, what? It's already gone down this much? Checking the bank book, I see that more than half of the funds are gone. It's understandable that hospital expenses are high. But losing hundreds of thousands of dollars in 3 years is excessively fast. I start searching the shelf for documents that could explain the hospital expenses. And come across a large number of sleazy club membership cards, business cards, and coupons. It seems Phil has been frequenting adult entertainment venues. Searching the names on the cards and business cards, I find some from nightclub. The rate at which the money has decreased suggests he might have also been splurging on luxury items for someone. Whenever I noticed the smell of alcohol, it was from the nightclub. When he came home late without the smell, it was from the cat house. I couldn't help but make unwanted assumptions that made me feel sick. In cases of frequenting nightclubs or other cat houses, some might lay down the law and make them promise never to go again. However, this situation involved a sum of money that went beyond simple admonishment. Above all, I couldn't forgive him for dipping into our daughter's funds. I decided to confront Phil when he returned from his business trip. What's this about? Well, remember when Ashley had her accident and you were extremely down? Back then, you were constantly venting your negativity, which really stressed me out. So, I sought some stress relief. So, it's been going on since then? I might have been down back then. But I haven't been like that since. Well, about a year into it, we had that fight, remember? After that, I stopped spending so much. But once you've indulged in luxury, it's hard to go back, you know. You just can't resist. I was ready to threaten divorce over his misuse of our daughter's funds. However, understanding that part of the reason for his spending was my own mental collapse and the stress it caused him, I found myself unable to fully unleash my anger on him. I see. Okay, but there won't be a next time. You're forgiving me? Do you think we'll be divorced by the time Ashley recovers? Right, that makes sense. But, as I said, there really won't be a next time. Next time I won't hesitate to divorce you. Also, I'll be keeping Ashley's bank book from now on. Just tell me where and how much needs to be paid, and I'll handle it. I hated how weak-willed I could be in situations like this. Phil likely knew this would be the outcome, understanding my personality all too well. Yet, even knowing this, I couldn't go against my nature and offered a compromise. Convincing myself this was for the best for now. 5 years after our daughter's accident, Phil had become more subdued since the incident with the money. I was in charge of Ashley's bank book, and we had significantly cut down the amount he can spend for himself, making further misdeeds unlikely. While he occasionally came home late, he didn't have much money on hand. Probably just enough for some drinks within his budget. I continued my part-time job while visiting our daughter regularly. It's raining today, so no walk, huh? I spoke to my daughter while wiping her body as usual. When I went to wipe her stomach, I noticed it was unusually swollen. Despite being able to eat paste-like food, she couldn't possibly have eaten enough to cause such swelling. Concerned it might be a medical issue, I called for a nurse. After the doctor examined her, a shocking revelation came to light. My daughter was pregnant. Obviously, in her vegetative state, she couldn't have consented to any sexual activity. I immediately phoned Phil. Upon learning of our daughter's pregnancy over the phone, Phil rushed to the hospital and started yelling as soon as he saw the doctor. "What's going on with the security here at this hospital?" The doctor shrank back, unable to respond. Phil continued his tirade relentlessly. "Have you contacted the police yet? Hurry up and catch the perpetrator. And the hospital will take its fair share of responsibility." While Phil's anger was justified and I was angry too, just yelling wouldn't solve anything. I calmed Phil down and continued talking to the doctor. "Has the police been contacted yet?" "No, we thought to wait until your husband arrived and we had a talk. We will consider how to proceed with your daughter's case from here on in the hospital. Of course, we will do everything we can." "What do you mean by everything you can? Be specific." "They said they're still figuring it out." I stopped Phil from getting overly confrontational and kept the conversation going. "Her room has surveillance cameras, right?" "Yes, as we might have mentioned at the time of admission. The cameras serve not only for security purposes, but also to monitor the patients. Typically, patients who are severely ill and cannot move on their own are placed in rooms equipped with cameras in most hospitals. This is because they cannot press the nurse call button or call for help if their condition suddenly worsens. Missing that crucial moment makes the cameras pointless." I became tired of constantly having to calm him down, so I silenced Phil with a glare. "We can't monitor the cameras 24 hours. However, they are always recording. This is to review what happened in case of an incident. So, reviewing the camera footage could reveal the perpetrator? It's very likely. Can I also see the footage? How about watching it together with the police?" I felt somewhat relieved, thinking this could lead to the perpetrator being quickly apprehended. However, Phil had to dampen the mood. "I think checking the footage is a waste of time." "Why would you say that? The camera is blatantly installed in the patient room. There's no way the perpetrator wouldn't notice it, right? They must have taken some measures to commit such a heinous act, don't you think?" "But, we have to check, don't we? Even if you check, it's pointless. Plus, if the perpetrator is captured on camera, do you really want to see what they did to Ashley?" "I don't want to see it, but..." "Then, let's leave it to the police, and we'll talk to the hospital about what to do next. As usual, you stay by Ashley's side, and I'll handle the talks with the hospital. Let's wait for the hospital to take whatever action they can." Considering their security was so lax, we can expect them to take significant steps. If their response is lackluster, we'll push back hard. I was dragged by Phil back to our daughter's hospital room. Upon returning, Phil began to smirk. He had been aggressively questioning the doctor and seemed to be pressuring the hospital for the best possible deal. I hesitantly asked Phil a question I hoped wouldn't return an unwanted answer. Are you planning to get money from the hospital? Huh? Of course. Are you saying you don't want it? It's not that. I think we should receive a fair amount for what's necessary. But watching you, it seems like you might demand more than that. What's wrong with that? It's only natural to get as much as we can. This is like Ashley earning her own money using her body. But since she can't speak for herself, it's our duty as her parents to squeeze as much as we can out of the hospital. It seemed Phil's frequent visits to the nightlife had tainted his mindset. I have no prejudice against women working in the cat house. Many hold their job with pride. However, Ashley did not choose to become pregnant. Phil had said she earned her own money using her body. My trust in Phil crumbled loudly. Can money and greed truly corrupt a person to this extent? I sneaked out of work to come here, so I need to make a quick call to the office. Watching Phil leave the room, he seemed like a villain from a drama to me. It's okay. I'll take care of everything for you. I held my daughter's hand, offering baseless words of comfort. Deep down, I knew better than anyone that, not being a doctor, a police officer, or a lawyer, there was nothing I could do. Sighing, I looked out the window at the courtyard below. Then, Phil caught my eye. He was heading toward the far end of the courtyard, seemingly towards a secluded spot behind the building. If he was just making a phone call, there was no need to go that far. And he wasn't on the phone as he walked. Unable to quell my suspicions, I hurried after him, concealing my presence. I approached Phil and saw him talking to a male nurse, the one who always helped with Ashley's walks. It seemed he had arrived after I left the room. I eavesdropped on their conversation, which turned out to be shockingly inappropriate. After finding out the truth, my emotions turned solely to anger. Just a few days after my daughter's pregnancy came to light, she had to undergo an abortion. The risks were significant, but thankfully, the surgery was successful. Inwardly, I celebrated, convinced that this was a sign of my daughter's recovery and regaining strength. Regarding the hospital room's camera, as Phil had mentioned, no suspicious individuals were captured. Moreover, there was no evidence of interruption or tampering with the footage. It seemed completely unaltered. It was as if my daughter had been impregnated by a ghost. However, upon DNA testing of the fetus, it was revealed that the perpetrator was not a ghost, but the male nurse who had been assisting with her walks. So the culprit was the nurse, huh? What a stupid move. Well, thanks to him, we're going to get some money from the hospital. We should thank him. With such distasteful words, Phil behaved as though the arrest of the perpetrator had already resolved the entire incident. But the real resolution of the case was yet to come. When Phil and I were at home, the doorbell rang. A delivery? I think it's for you. Could you get the door? Huh? Oh. After giving me a curious look, Phil headed towards the entrance. I followed behind him. What? What is this about? When Phil opened the door, a police officer was standing there. Did you call them? Phil turned around quickly, showing me a look of surprise. I didn't exactly call them, but I was informed they'd be coming soon. They asked if my husband was at home, you know. What do you mean? I overheard you talking with the nurse at the edge of the courtyard. The edge of the courtyard means? Exactly. You were taking money from the nurse and allowed him to do such terrible things to our daughter. What were you thinking, selling our daughter's body? On the day my daughter's pregnancy was discovered, I accidentally heard a conversation between Phil and the nurse. What should we do? I never thought she would get pregnant. Exactly, what have you done? Now, the perfect plan of taking Ashley out for walks. Making it look like the three of us went out together away from the surveillance cameras is ruined. Am I going to get caught? Aren't you going to get caught? Didn't you say they could do DNA testing even from a fetus? You'll get arrested, and I'll lose the extra cash from you. My wife has taken away the bank book, and I get hardly any money now. Your money was my lifeline, and now I can't even go to Cat House anymore. This is the worst. Well, thanks to you, it looks like I might be able to squeeze some money out of the hospital. But don't you dare break our agreement. So, I'm supposed to say that I did it all by myself, right? Exactly. Getting to be with a 17-year-old virgin and then continuing at a low price. It's only natural to take the fall, right? Just make sure you keep your end of the bargain, too. I understand. Even if you get caught, once you're out, I'll set you up again. Don't worry about the discount for taking the fall, I haven't forgotten about it. Feeling nauseous with disgust, I recorded their conversation on my smartphone and submitted the audio to the police. The combination of DNA test results and the recording prompted the police to take action. The nurse initially tried to stick to the agreement with Phil, claiming he acted alone. However, when confronted with the audio evidence I submitted, he ended up confessing everything. Because the nurse disclosed Phil's involvement, the police determined that they needed to speak with Phil as well. No excuse will work now. Damn it. What's the harm in letting a guy have her? It's not like she can feel anything anyway. Phil was taken away by the police without any resistance. I didn't miss the words he muttered under his breath. Although I had already been considering divorce, his actions and the subsequent revelations only solidified my decision. Later, since our daughter was still 17, under the age of 18, Phil and the nurse were charged with violations of child welfare and anti-prostitution laws. Despite being their first offense, the nature of their actions was deemed so egregious that they were sentenced to 7 years in prison. Naturally, Phil and I divorced. We divided our savings, but I decided not to give him any of my daughter's money, which she would continue to need for her ongoing medical care. Knowing they would lose societal credibility and face difficulties upon release, I initially thought about giving them a bit more money. However, remembering Phil's words as he was being taken away by the police, I lost any inclination to do so. Now, I hope they face the full extent of their struggles. I returned to my parents' home, and we moved my daughter to a hospital closer to us. My parents have agreed to help support my daughter, so I've decided to look for a new job. Despite the challenges that come with re-entering the workforce after a gap, I am determined to work hard to support my daughter. Recently, after Ryan takes a bath, there are white threads floating in the bathtub. Whenever I ask Ryan about it, he just dodges the question. The night before Ryan went on a business trip, he gave me an aroma oil that's said to be effective for morning sickness. If I use it every night as Ryan instructed, I experience severe pain in my lower abdomen and have to call emergency services. When I explain the situation at the maternity clinic, the doctor starts trembling. It's an aroma that endangers both mother and baby. Suspecting Ryan's infidelity, I called his company and found out that Ryan and Amy had taken leave on the same days. I head to Amy's apartment and lie in wait in my car. Across the street, I see Amy and Ryan coming together. I can't wait for us to start living together. If this plan works, we can send Michelle back to her parents' house. if she loses the baby and becomes emotionally unstable? It wouldn't be weird for us to live apart. It's her fault for getting pregnant without considering I don't like kids. I bury my face in the steering wheel and sob. Eventually, I raise my head and swear revenge on Ryan and Amy. I will never forgive them. I am Michelle, a 40-year-old housewife. I met Ryan at work and we got married 5 years ago. Ryan works for a major corporation. He's a rank-and-file employee but works diligently and earns a high salary. Recently, I finally achieved my long-awaited pregnancy. I spend my days looking forward to meeting our baby, gazing at the ultrasound photo. But recently, I've been unbearably anxious. There's something odd about Ryan. Eventually, I realize Ryan's true nature and feel a chill down my spine. I got to know Ryan well when I was assigned to his team at the subsidiary company where he works. Ryan, who is not the hard-working type but is adored by his boss and loved by his colleagues and juniors, was someone I respected. Being someone who struggles with communication and takes time to open up to others, I was amazed by him. So, when he asked me out, I seriously wondered what he saw in me. When he proposed later on, he answered with a gentle smile. "You seem modest and obedient. And I like your looks." Feeling insecure about my youthful appearance and short stature, I was surprised but also felt joy. Later, we asked Ryan's boss to be our matchmaker, and we got married. The first year, buoyed by our newlywed life, we had no particular issues. However, as the second year approached, I started to struggle with balancing housework and my job. Despite promising to share household chores before marriage, Ryan started to leave all the housework to me. I understand it's tough since Michelle is also working full-time. But I just can't relax in a messy house. Confused by Ryan's complaints, I keep up with the washing and laundry. It's just that I can't find the time to vacuum every day, so there's a bit of dust in the corners. I wipe with a cleaning sheet every day. It's a condo, so vacuuming early in the morning or late at night would be a nuisance, right?
Yeah,
I guess. But I like cleanliness. It makes me uncomfortable. Despite that, Ryan's study is a mess. He told me not to enter, so I've only peeked from the hallway. The sight of his cluttered room filled with empty snack bags, empty cans of beer, and car magazines made me shiver. The tidiness of his desk at work must be due to his concern for appearances. Ryan's complaints continue. Lately, the meals have been sloppy, too. Just reheating prepped food. I want something freshly made. This is no different from store-bought side dishes. I couldn't believe my ears. To have the meal I spent my holiday preparing called store-bought. You know, maintaining a sparkling clean house, working full-time, and always having fresh meals ready is impossible without hiring a maid. Then why don't you quit your job? Ryan said it with a cool expression. But you should just become a full-time housewife. I'll work to make up for it. I felt a wave of anxiety. Living as a couple might be manageable, but what about when we have children? Wouldn't the educational expenses become unaffordable? Hesitating to respond, Ryan looked into my face and smiled gently. I'm just worried about you, Michelle. It hurts me to see you exhausted every day. Ryan. Please, become a full-time housewife for me. I was proud of my job. The environment was good, and I wanted to continue until retirement if possible. But I didn't want to worry Ryan. After much deliberation, and despite the regret of my colleagues and boss, I resigned. I've always been shy and slow to warm up to people. But once I do, I maintain deep, long-lasting relationships. That's why I vowed to cherish Ryan forever. Ryan cherished me too. However, once I became a full-time housewife and started depending on Ryan's income, he began to act dominantly towards me. What? The orthopedic clinic I go to changed doctors? Yes. It used to be a female doctor, remember? When I went there after a long time, her son in his 20s was examining me. His mother retired, and he took over as the head of the clinic. Ryan showed his displeasure when I mentioned going to the hospital because I sprained my foot. Then stop going there. Go to the hospital in the next town where a female doctor works. But I was told to keep going there until I'm fully healed. No. Ryan raised his voice, unusually. Just thinking of Michelle being touched by a young man makes me feel sick. Are you okay with that? I was surprised by Ryan's statement. It's a medical examination. It can't be helped. There are other doctors. Change to the next town's hospital next time. Otherwise, I'll stop giving you money for the visits. Reluctantly, I changed to a hospital in the next town to appease Ryan. I laughed to myself at how jealous he was, but it gradually stopped being funny. Next, Ryan complained about my regular hair salon. When I said I would have to switch to a male hairdresser because my usual stylist was on maternity leave. Ryan secretly visited the salon and then started nitpicking. That guy is not good at his job. Paying $50 for such a haircut is a ripoff. Why don't you change to someone else? I was taken aback but calmly explained. That's the going rate around here. He's well regarded among people I know. Well regarded for what? He's just popular because of his looks. He must be hitting on his clients. Don't say that. He has a wife and kids. Then it's infidelity. Ryan sneered. Just thinking about him touching your hair with those sleazy hands makes me furious. I can't even sleep at night. What? It's just a haircut. Stop making a fuss. Though I argued, I eventually switched to another salon because he was too bothersome. Over time, Ryan even started to fault me for going out. It's strange for a housewife to be out all the time. You should devote yourself more to your husband. What's that supposed to mean? I do my part around the house. I didn't quit my job just to stay cooped up at home. Hey, I want to go back to work. I think I can manage both if I work part-time. No way. Ryan rejected the suggestion outright. The housework will surely be neglected. I'm supporting us here, what more do you want? I was speechless at Ryan's frowning face. When I consulted with my college friend, Tracy, she was just as astonished. Tracy works in human resources at Ryan's workplace. Ryan listens to our opinions at work and never shows any disrespect towards women. But privately, he's like this, huh? He uses male chauvinism as an excuse, and it's causing problems. But I hate to fight with Ryan, and since he doesn't verbally abuse me, I'm at a loss for how to respond. Sipping coffee at a cafe, I sighed. If things get any worse, talk to me. I'm on your side, Michelle. Yeah, thank you. I smiled in response, but gradually going out became a chore. And I started to spend my days feeling gloomy and depressed. Then, after feeling unwell for several days, I tried a pregnancy test and, to my surprise, it was positive. I exclaimed in the bathroom. Having almost given up due to my age, I was so happy I cried. When Ryan came home and I told him, his cheeks stiffened for a moment before he forced a smile. Really? I can't believe it. Me neither. I'll see a doctor tomorrow. I'll make sure to choose a place with a female doctor. When should we tell my parents? Let's wait until after the safe period. Right. We don't know if everything will be okay yet. Although Ryan's words troubled me, they were true. For now, I decided to focus on having a healthy baby. But contrary to my excitement, Ryan seemed not to welcome the pregnancy. He had said he wasn't fond of children and had agreed to give up if we didn't conceive naturally. However, I hoped his feelings would change now that we were expecting. Many people say they don't like kids but love their own. So, I casually brought up baby-related topics daily, hoping to make the pregnancy feel more real to him. Liam, Maddox, Aria. Modern names are so stylish. Gender-neutral names are trendy now. I kept talking to Ryan, who was absorbed in his phone. What kind of names do you like, Ryan? Can't you see I'm busy? I'll leave it up to you. I couldn't hide my disappointment at his indifferent attitude. On another day. You're taking a day off soon, right? There's a prenatal checkup on that day. Let's go together. Why would a man go? It's not related to me. I felt my cheeks stiffen. It's not related is an odd thing for a father to say. With a half smile, he delivered the final blow. I'm not good with horror movies, so no to being present at the birth, okay? I was deeply disappointed by such an inappropriate comparison. Here I was, preparing to give birth, risking my life. But, struggling with morning sickness, I didn't have the energy to argue with Ryan. Nausea, fatigue, and lethargy made it hard for me to stand in the kitchen or clean. It wasn't unusual for me to spend the day slumped on the sofa. I was worried about Ryan complaining, but given how often I ran to the bathroom, he seemed reluctant to nag. Carrying laundry, I passed by the bathroom and heard the shower, reminding me. After Ryan bathes, there are always white threads in the tub. Thinner than hair, when scooped up, they're about 1 inch long. When I asked Ryan about it, after a brief silence, he shrugged with a wry smile. That's just dirt. Michelle, you've been slacking on cleaning the bath, haven't you? No, it's not like that. I can't explain it well. All right. Let's try to clean more, okay? I felt brushed off, but didn't want to argue, so I decided not to pursue it further. However, since I didn't want to bathe in a tub with mysterious floating things, I resolved to just take showers for the time being. The connection between Ryan and the threads remains unclear. Could his recent string of late nights and increased business trips be related? One Friday, Ryan approached me with a big smile. I've got a business trip to New York starting tomorrow. Sorry, Michelle, it's tough with you having morning sickness and me leaving for a week. It's for work, so it can't be helped. Take care, okay?
Yeah.
By the way, I got something good. He handed me a stylish white box. Inside, there were 7 small bottles with black lids. Is this aroma oil?
Yeah.
It's supposed to help with morning sickness, Ryan said enthusiastically. A colleague's wife tried it and said her appetite came back. Really? How do you use it? Add it to the bath. It's effective as an aroma bath. I asked for instructions and wrote them down, so use it like this. I'm not a fan of artificial scents and have never used aroma oils or incense. I appreciated Ryan writing down the instructions for me. Reading the note, Ryan emphasized seriously. Make sure you do it every day. It's for you and the baby. Understood. I'll thank your colleague for you. From the day Ryan left for his trip, I took an aroma bath every night. Since there were no white threads, I could relax in the bath. Let's see, 1 bottle for 50 gallons of water? That's quite a lot. Pouring it into the bath, a piercing scent rose with the steam. It seemed relaxing and potentially beneficial for the baby. Though the effect wasn't immediate, my appetite might return by the time Ryan got back. With hope, I continued using it, reaching day 5. During the bath, I suddenly felt a dull pain in my lower abdomen. I thought it might be constipation, but the pain intensified rapidly. Groaning in pain, I changed into my room clothes and called an ambulance. The thought of something happening to the baby was crushing. I informed them I was pregnant and asked to be taken to my regular maternity clinic. Upon trying to explain my condition to the female head doctor, she grimaced. "Did you add bath salts to your bath?" "I was taking an aroma bath." The doctor frowned. "My husband got it from a colleague. It's supposed to help with morning sickness. Since the cause of the pain is unknown, I brought it just in case." I handed over the note Ryan wrote and the bottle of aroma oil. The doctor's face changed color, and she started trembling. "Doctor? You used this every day in a closed bathroom?" "Yes." After hesitating, the doctor spoke in a grave tone. "The herb used in this aroma oil can cause uterine contractions. It's absolutely forbidden for pregnant women. You could have lost the baby." Everything went dark before my eyes. I managed to stay conscious and urgently requested a checkup. Fortunately, the baby was fine. I was told my body would recover with some rest. I stayed in the hospital overnight and took a taxi home the next morning. Even after returning, I couldn't believe what had happened. I had followed Ryan's instructions, yet I had almost endangered our baby. I couldn't rest until I confronted him with my anger. I waited until lunch break to call Ryan's cell phone, but it just rang endlessly. A bad feeling crossed my mind. His recent distant behavior, the sudden increase in overtime and business trips. And now this incident. I've heard that many husbands cheat while their wives are pregnant. Deciding to check, I called Tracy. "Sorry to bother you during your break." Tracy gasped on the other end of the phone. "You're in a place with signal now?" "What do you mean?" "I thought you were feeling sick from morning sickness. And went back to your hometown. A place with no signal." "I held back from sending messages since I heard Ryan was with you. Thinking you'd be okay." "I'm at home." "What do you mean?" "I heard Ryan is on a business trip in New York." I could hear Tracy sighing. "He wanted to prevent me from contacting you, afraid the affair would be discovered." "That's right." "Hey, any female employees taking leave during the same period?" "Hold on. It's Amy Simpson from accounting." "Want her address?" "Yes, please." My anger overshadowed the shock. I was convinced Ryan was there. After hanging up, I drove to the address given. The nausea from my morning sickness was blown away by my rage. I parked my car where I could see the entrance of the apartment, waiting for Ryan and Amy to appear. My car was common enough that I wouldn't be noticed. About an hour later, a couple holding hands walked from the other side of the street. Ryan and a woman with flashy makeup must be Amy. Ryan, carrying a heavy eco bag, looked unmistakably happy. The thought of him having an affair while I suffered infuriated me. "It feels like we're newlyweds." "So fun." Her shrill voice echoed through the street. "I can't wait to live with you. If this plan works, we can send Michelle back to her parents. Divorce might be tough, but separation should be safe, right?" Ryan agreed, looking pleased. "If she loses the baby and becomes emotionally unstable, separation won't look strange at all." "You're so smart." "It's her fault for getting pregnant without considering I don't like kids." Even after they disappeared into the apartment, I remained stunned for a while. Then, a fierce anger surged from the pit of my stomach. Tears overflowed from my eyes before I realized it. I felt humiliated. And pathetic. I felt sick to my stomach for trusting someone like him. Leaning over the steering wheel, I sobbed. Eventually, I raised my head, clenched my teeth, and swore revenge on Ryan and Amy. Ryan and Amy. I will never forgive them. 2 days later. In the afternoon, I took time off and headed to Amy's apartment with Tracy. I waited outside the entrance hall to avoid being seen by the intercom camera. Yes? Oh, Tracy? What brings you here? Tracy pressed the intercom, and Amy responded immediately. Her sugary voice was irritating. Weren't you supposed to take documents home to finish? You left some materials on your desk. Amy fell for Tracy's lie easily. Oh dear, that's so like me. Thank you. I'll come to pick them up now. It's fine. I'll bring it to your room. Really? Then please do. I'll unlock the door. Once the door opened, we took the elevator up to Amy's apartment. To avoid being caught on camera, I waited at a distance while Tracy called out to Amy. Shortly after, the door opened, and Amy appeared in a hair turban and casual home clothes. Taking a shower in the middle of the day, how luxurious. Maybe they plan to get cozy afterward. Tracy, you're a lifesaver. Really dependable. Eek. Amy let out a sharp scream when she saw me peeking out. She tried to close the door, so I wedged my bag in the gap. Forced the door open with my hand, and made our way in. Amy resignedly let Tracy and me into the apartment. From a room half open, Ryan's voice speaking in baby talk to a cat could be heard. We tiptoed down the hallway and peeked into the room to find Ryan, in just his underwear. Lowering his eyes and brushing a long-haired cat. Leo, stay still, you're such a good boy. I'll give you a treat later. Today, your fur is silky smooth, the most handsome kitty in the world. Meow. I see. The white threads were from a white cat's fur. No wonder there were so many if he was brushing it shirtless. So he was getting into the bath without rinsing off first? Even knowing I would use it after him? Ew. That's dirty. Anger bubbled up at the sight of Ryan's smitten face. So, he prefers his affair partner's cat over our baby. The cat was the first to notice my resentful gaze. It twitched and scurried away to a corner of the room, scared. Leo, what's wrong all of a sudden? Let's play with Daddy. Since when did you become a cat's dad? Or did you get Amy pregnant too? Ryan looked up in shock as I entered the living room. Why are you? Ryan, you've been careless. Ryan was startled by Tracy, who appeared from behind me. That's right, you're friends with Tracy. Ryan sighed as if resigned to his fate, while Amy clung to him from behind. Ryan, we've been caught. It's okay, Amy. Leave it to me. His attempt to act confident in just his underwear was almost laughable in such a situation. How are you feeling, Michelle? I've told you countless times how hard the morning sickness has been. No, I mean, if you're here, then you must be okay, right? Didn't use the aroma oil, did you? Amy interjected. That's why both mother and child are healthy. Ah. Right. You should trust your husband more. Their smirking faces and Ryan's look of disappointment infuriated me. I did use it. I was touched that Ryan was concerned about me. Then I was struck with severe pain and had to call an ambulance. I was nearly too late. I yelled at them, and Amy cut in with her sugary voice. Aww. Too bad. A baby not wanted by daddy should just disappear. Excuse me? Do you even realize what you've done? You tried to take the lives of me and my baby. That's not true. Ryan chuckled dismissively. It's not even born yet, so treating it like a person is absurd. Besides, are you really pregnant? You're just saying that because you sensed I was cheating and wanted to get my attention, right? Exactly. And the whole morning sickness thing is just an act, right? I felt like my brain was boiling at Ryan and Amy's guffawing. I showed you the ultrasound. Could have borrowed it from another pregnant woman. Your stomach is flat, can't trust that. Could be some other man's child. Enough from both of you. Even Tracy's scolding didn't wipe the smirks off Ryan and Amy's faces. Well, even if it were my kid, I don't want it. His words felt like a stab in the heart. Don't do anything without my permission. Making unnecessary trouble. Hey, why are you so against this? Is the idea of becoming a father that repulsive? Are you that uncomfortable with babies? When I confronted him, Ryan furrowed his brow and spat out his response. Of course I hate it. Who's gonna take care of me when the baby's born? Ryan then unleashed a torrent of complaints about me. Michelle, you were cute when we got married, but you've gotten ugly with age. Pregnant, you're just unbearable. Skinny and pale, your skin is rough. Zero femininity. Pointing at me, he ranted. How can you even call yourself my wife? Embarrassing. I shouldn't have married a 35-year-old hag. Well, Ryan, you've got a belly and you're losing hair, looking every bit the middle-aged dad. My retort was completely ignored by Ryan. And lately, all you talk about is the baby. Have you forgotten I'm the main thing here? As my wife, you should prioritize me. I couldn't care less about the baby inside you. I was dumbfounded by Ryan's argument. He's just like a child. Such a person becoming a father would only bring misery to me and our child. Amy, who had been enjoying Ryan's tirade, chimed in. Ryan prefers younger, prettier women like me, not some 40-year-old hag. Right. Seems like any young and pretty girl would do for you. Tracy and I exchanged glances and nodded. Tracy then pulled out not documents, but photos from a large envelope she had brought. As she laid them out on the living room table, Amy watched curiously. Ryan, who had been so arrogant, now looked awkward and fidgety. You do know these girls, right, Amy? They're all from the same sales department as Ryan. What's this? I've gathered evidence and recordings. The fun starts now. Hey, stop it. Ignoring Ryan's feeble protests, Tracy pressed play on her phone's recording app. I'm secretly dating Ryan. Oh, Amy? She's an old lady at 28. He switched to a younger me. Ryan told me Sarah is his ideal woman. We've been dating for 3 months. He's getting a divorce soon, right? Ryan said office romances are troublesome if discovered, so it's our secret. The trip during his business travel was so fun. Amy's eyes widened in shock as Ryan looked bewildered. Tracy, how did you know I was dating these girls? You took leave and filed for overtime on the same days as these girls. I'm in HR, so it was easy to spot. They happily spilled the beans when I pressed them. They were dying to talk. Right, to a 24-year-old, both 28 and 40 might as well be old ladies. As I mocked them, Amy's face turned red. Tears in her eyes, Amy looked up at Ryan with resentment, her voice choked with emotion. Horrible. To think you were with others besides me. No, it's not like that. Amy, you're the most important to me. You're the main one, the others were just for fun. Ryan, stumbling over his words, tried to make excuses. Come on, every guy needs a break, right? I can be kind to Amy because I let off steam with other women. You like the kind me, don't you? The situation was headache-inducing. Why dig himself deeper with such poor excuses instead of simply apologizing? As expected, Amy's expression turned terrifying. What? That logic makes no sense. Why are you mad? You're the one I treasure the most. You should be happy, right? Who do you think you are? I never thought you were this kind of person. Amy was on the verge of attacking Ryan, screaming and crying, while I looked on with a cold gaze. What are you even saying? This is exactly why he cheats so casually and has no sense of responsibility as a father. He even tried to get rid of our baby. Amy stopped crying and stared at me intently. Both of us lack judgment in men. Shut up. Don't lump me in with you. She snapped at me before turning her anger back on Ryan. Don't think you can do this to me and get away with it. That's my line. You're playing the victim. But you were in on the aroma oil scheme, weren't you? I spoke to Amy in a stern voice. I've reported it to the police. Both of you will be arrested for assault. Be prepared. And of course, I recorded all your confessions today. Ryan looked at me with panic. Arrested? You're going to turn in your own husband? If you do that, your baby's father will be a criminal. The hospital has a duty to report. I'm pretty sure the head doctor already did. Don't worry, we're getting a divorce. Ryan and Amy exchanged wary looks before launching into a desperate defense. I had nothing to do with it. It was all Ryan's idea. Hey. When I complained about my annoying wife, it was Amy who suggested making you sick with the aroma oil to kick you out. What? You came to me saying you were bored of her but divorce was too hard. What should you do? That was all your idea. Thinking of using aroma to do it. What a scary woman. Are you a criminal or something? The nerve. Ugh. This is the worst. You said it would be okay, so I went along with it. Then you cheat with other women and get caught so easily. I never should have gotten involved with you. Amy ranted and raved while Ryan clicked his tongue. Annoying. Women think crying will get them off the hook. Such foolish creatures. Just then, the intercom rang. Yes, we've been expecting you. Please come in. Tracy responded cheerfully as Ryan looked puzzled. A guest? Yes. Our chief. Amy suddenly stopped crying. The chief? I've been live tweeting our conversation to the company group chat. When he saw it, he came right over. Ryan's face went pale. Understandably so. The chief had served as the mediator at our wedding. That's why Ryan had avoided divorce, not wanting to disgrace the chief. And instead tried to make me sick to send me back to my parents' home. Without paying heed to Ryan's panic, Tracy invited the chief inside. Shortly after, the chief appeared, his face ablaze with anger. Chief. With a strained smile, Ryan and Amy were confronted by the chief. Both of you will be transferred to a desk by the window starting tomorrow. That's so unfair. I got dragged into this. I was about to be promoted to section chief with the spring personnel changes. Does this mean my promotion is delayed? The chief's temples throbbed as he glared sharply at Ryan. I had high hopes for you because of your diligent work. But to think you were this kind of person. I'm disappointed. It's her fault. She got pregnant without my consent. I didn't want a child. The chief gave Ryan, who was pleading with teary eyes, a glance as cold as ice. You're not just delayed for promotion. You're now a candidate for layoff. If our performance suffers, you too will be the first to be let go. Try your best. Ryan's face fell in despair as the chief turned to me. I apologize for the trouble my subordinates have caused you. We will take full responsibility. Please don't hesitate to ask if you need any statements from us. I'm sorry for the inconvenience as well. I also apologized to the chief. Meanwhile, Ryan and Amy were slumped on the floor, dejected. Did they really think they could live peacefully after treating me this way? Their audacity was astounding. I'm going to start packing to return to my parents' home with Tracy's help. Send the divorce papers to my parents' house once you've signed them. I'll be filing for compensation and child support through my lawyer later. Ryan weakly nodded his acknowledgement. With Tracy and the chief, I left Amy's apartment. The next day, Ryan and Amy were arrested for assault, but since it was their first offense, they were released on probation after a week. They broke up soon after. Returning to work, they continued at the company, but resigned after being coldly treated by coworkers due to widespread rumors. With the compensation paid, I honestly didn't care what happened to them afterward. Amy disappeared without a trace, but Ryan, disowned by his parents-in-law, is scraping by with multiple part-time jobs. Tracy, whom I ran into on the street, said Ryan looked nothing like the man who once worked for a major corporation, appearing shabby and miserable. My in-laws, having learned of the incident, came from the countryside to apologize to me. I had always been treated well by them since getting married and held no grudge against them. They cried with joy when my daughter was born recently. Thus, I plan to take my daughter to visit them during the holidays. If my daughter ever wishes to meet her father when she's older, I'll consider accompanying her under certain conditions. Looking at my daughter's innocent smile, I can't help but pity Ryan for saying he didn't want such a beautiful child. Motherhood is tough, but I'm grateful to be her mother. I look forward to warmly watching her grow with people who love her. I got pregnant. She suddenly told me, claiming to be a close friend of a colleague. She says she's engaged to my fiancé. Losing my fiancé to a woman who couldn't work and made trouble. I left my job because it became uncomfortable to stay at the company. I never dreamed that a major turnaround in my life was waiting for me after that. My name is Jenny. I'm 28 years old. I work in the editorial department of a boys' comic at a certain publishing company. I hate to say it myself, but I'm fairly competent. I have 3 comic artists under my charge. One is a hitmaker who is the face of the magazine. One is a veteran with enthusiastic fans. And one is a promising newcomer who seems capable of carrying the magazine's future on their shoulders. They all trust me to handle their manuscripts. The basic job of an editor is to assist the comic artists and ensure the manuscript is completed by the deadline. I gather materials, deliver them to the workplace, and even encourage the assistants with snacks. Depending on the artist, I also help brainstorm ideas. I believe comic artists are professionals who create worlds with their own hands and give dreams and hopes to readers. Actually, I used to draw comics when I was a student. I had a dream of becoming a comic artist, but realizing I lacked the talent, I decided I wanted to help bring comics to the world instead and became an editor. Jenny really loves comics. Patrick says, a colleague and my boyfriend. We started dating about 2 years ago and are discussing getting married soon. So you could say he's pretty much my fiancé. It's not a 9 to 5 job. I often rush to my artists outside of regular hours, which makes it hard to sync up with the average salaried worker. That's why dating Patrick, who works in the same editorial job, is easy. Well, finding time for dates is still a challenge. Jenny, you're lucky with your assignments. Katie says, another colleague from the same batch. She originally worked as an editor for a girls' comic magazine. But the big-name female comic artist she was in charge of disliked her, so she moved departments. While comic artists can be difficult or eccentric, I think Katie was the problem in this case. She's always late, full of excuses, and quick to blame others. Still, she looks cute and seems shy and reserved. So someone thought she'd be better off handling male comic artists in a boys' comic magazine. For reasons that might raise eyebrows today. Maybe there's some luck, but I also put in the effort. I want to see good comics. Katie, do you even know your comic artist's favorite foods or hobbies? But I do bring trendy sweets and stuff. It's not about what's trendy. You have to bring what they actually like. Some people don't like sweets, you know. I went out of my way to line up and buy them, and he said, I don't like sweets. I told you that before, didn't I? Was that the chestnut cake you were eating the other day? You bought it because you wanted to eat it yourself. And just got something for them on the side. Prioritizing yourself over your comic artist, what's that about? It's not a big deal, right? It is a big deal. Buying something for yourself and then picking up something for comic artists as an afterthought. And using it as an excuse to line up during work hours. Come on, not everyone is as passionate about their work as you. Jenny, Patrick intervened. I felt down when I heard, I wish I had a cute girl like Katie as my editor. You are nice, Patrick. I didn't like their unserious attitude towards work. Since they are the only 3 colleagues who can still speak their minds to each other. Patrick, Katie and I often went out for drinks together. Katie claims to be a father complex, and her current boyfriend is nearly 20 years older than her. I've been drawn to older men ever since my dad passed away when I was little. They're kind and calm, and I just don't get girls who date guys their own age. Hey, are you really going to say that in front of us, a couple of the same age? Katie knows that Patrick and I are dating. For me, I can't imagine being with someone 20 years older. When I'm 50, he'll be 70, right? Too old for me. While joking like this, I felt somewhat relieved that Katie wouldn't become a rival in love. One day, when I was waiting to meet Patrick for a date, Katie called me saying she was feeling unwell and asked if I could pick up a manuscript in her place. I could have refused, but the comic artist Katie was in charge of was someone I had been a fan of since his debut. David Stone is a mid-30s male comic artist with talent, but has yet to produce a hit work. I contacted Patrick to cancel our date and went to pick up the manuscript. Huh? You're Jenny, right? What happened to the person in charge? I was happy that he remembered my name even though I've never been in charge of him. Katie is not feeling well, so I came to pick up the manuscript instead. She often seems unwell. Is she okay? Doesn't she have a weak constitution? I had never heard that Katie was frail. It seems she uses her health as an excuse to get out of requests. Hearing stories about messed up arrangements for autograph sessions. Bringing fan letters that were 6 months old. Or offering apple pie despite knowing the artist has an apple allergy made me frustrated. Last time, when I asked for photos of a ruin with an otherworldly atmosphere, she sent me a blurry photo she found on the internet. If that was all it took, I wouldn't have bothered asking. Hearing the artist sigh, I apologized on Katie's behalf and promised to speak sternly to her. He said something sad like, maybe my comic isn't popular, so that's why I'm treated coldly. To which I confessed, I've been a fan of your work since your debut. I even buy the volumes to put on my bookshelf. He was delighted and said, really? Then, I'll draw your favorite character for you. And carefully drew my favorite character in my notebook. I was so happy I forgot about my anger towards Katie. Huh? But that artist is so analog. He wants analog materials and sends fan letters by postal mail, which is so weird. When I sternly warned her, far from being remorseful, Katie insisted she did nothing wrong. There are still many analog artists out there. Many fans take the time to write letters by hand. Don't do your job half-heartedly just because you find it bothersome. Jenny, you're scary. Listen. Our job is to help comic artists create good work. Providing them with allergenic food or bothering them doesn't just get in the way, it's harmful. But I didn't know. It can't be helped. That was a lie. Mr. Stone had said he informed her. Then Patrick joined the conversation. What's going on here? Why the tension? Katie, without even shedding tears, made a crying face and whined to Patrick in a spoiled voice.
Aww.
Patrick. Jenny is being so harsh. Katie, did you make another careless mistake? This isn't about being careless or clumsy. I'm talking about her attitude towards work. We don't need an editor who causes trouble for comic artists. Hey, that's too harsh. Don't judge people by your own standards. I never expected my fiancé to take Katie's side. I think that was when I realized that my relationship with Patrick was starting to fail. Our priorities and views on work were just too different. I should have been the one to end things quickly. But perhaps I still had feelings or thought the relationship could be fixed, so I couldn't cut Patrick off. Afterwards, Katie was removed from being David Stone's editor. It was because Mr. Stone had asked the chief editor for a change. But the chief editor didn't convey this to Katie directly. So she assumed I had badmouthed her to the chief editor. You are mean. I can't believe you told the chief editor. What? I just cautioned you, I didn't tattle. Then why am I being removed from my position? The fact that you're taking over proves it. Indeed, Mr. Stone had expressed his wish to the chief editor that he wanted me to take over. While I was thrilled by this, it only fueled Katie's belief that I was the reason she lost her position. Managing 4 comic artists seemed a bit challenging to me. So after discussing with the chief editor, we decided Katie could take over from a hitmaker comic artist. This artist worked with a production team handling tasks like gathering materials and managing events. And they never missed deadlines. So the main responsibilities of the editor were basically to pick up the manuscript and deliver snacks. I thought there wouldn't be any trouble with Katie handling it. Katie was happy, saying, maybe it's actually a lucky break. Mr. Stone wasn't making a splash, and many of my friends didn't even know his name. But now, I'll be working with a famous artist everyone knows. Her anger towards me seemed to disappear, but I was quite irritated on the inside. I'm sorry if I caused trouble between you and your colleague by asking the chief editor. He apologized when I first showed up at his workplace after taking over. I didn't know how the word got out, but such news spreads fast. No, I'm happy to be working with you. I'll work hard to make up for Katie's interference. Just let me know what you need. When I said this, he immediately asked, I'm sorry to ask so soon, but could you find me an assistant? I had asked Katie a while back. I couldn't believe the lack of work being done. I arranged for someone who could match Mr. Stone's drawing style and wouldn't disturb the workplace atmosphere. Mr. Stone was single, and meals during work were mostly delivered. So I arranged for someone who could cook, and I also cooked when I visited. Since he had no manager, I also took care of as much of the small administrative details of his daily life on his behalf as possible. You're a huge help. The materials you provide are perfect. And I've got much more time to draw now. I was pleased to be appreciated. Mr. Stone's work, though not flashy, had excellent artistry and a unique worldview with humor, attracting a core fan base. I was one of them. He was the type who wanted to spend time on his drawings, but was previously overwhelmed by trivial tasks and a shortage of assistants. Perhaps because he now had more time and less stress. The popularity of his serialized work increased, and I received praise from the chief editor. One day, Patrick said, we need to talk, and I promised to have dinner with him. Do we talk about marriage? Or perhaps a breakup? Either way, I felt it was time to clarify things. However, when I arrived at the restaurant we had planned on, Patrick and Katie were sitting side by side, not opposite each other, which struck me as odd. I took the seat opposite them. "Jenny, I'm pregnant." She said this as soon as I sat down. "What?" "It's Patrick's baby." "What?" "What about the older guy you were dating?" "Oh, we broke up a while back." Katie said this as she snuggled up to Patrick, who was sitting beside her. "But I thought you weren't interested in guys your own age?" "I thought so too, but there's no reason for falling in love." "What?" Then Patrick said, I want to start a family with her." "So? Go ahead." "Huh? You can be family, whatever you want." "If that's all you want to talk about, I'm leaving." As I stood up to leave, they both started apologizing repeatedly. "I'm really sorry about this." "Sorry, Jenny." Katie's smug face at that moment infuriated me. "It's fine. You two are perfect for each other." Then, with a look of self-pity, Patrick said, "What I've come to dislike about you is your condescension. Just because you're a bit good at your job, you look down on others." I didn't mean it, but that's how Patrick must have felt. I'm not looking down on anyone. I think it's a difference in the way you and I think about our work. That's why you two are perfect for each other. I left the restaurant with those words. I wasn't sad. I did feel frustrated. But more because I was outmaneuvered by Katie than for losing my fiancé to her. I should have initiated the breakup sooner. Remembering Katie's triumphant expression made me feel awful. Apparently, Katie plans to keep working even after getting married. While our editorial department doesn't meddle in personal affairs, almost everyone knew I was dating Patrick. And then suddenly, Katie and Patrick got married. People love this kind of gossip, and all sorts of speculation were flying around. I became known as the woman whose fiancé was stolen by a supposed close friend. I don't recall ever becoming close friends with Katie, but she must have been spreading all sorts of stories. I knew he was her boyfriend, but I fell in love. It just happened. She supposedly said, playing the tragic heroine. But it wasn't just Katie. Patrick too had been saying Jenny's treatment of Katie was terrible. Seeing that drove me away, and I felt I had to protect Katie. It seems I was painted as a detestable woman who harassed her close friend. Katie, over work issues, stole the comic artist she was in charge of, and was dumped by her fiancé for it. Well, those who know my work ethic probably didn't believe half of it, but I still felt uncomfortable. And I had to see those two every day. "Jenny, I'll give you an invitation to our wedding. You'll attend as a colleague, right?" When Katie handed me the invitation, I decided to quit. I won't be attending since I won't be a colleague anymore. Saying that, I submitted my resignation letter to the chief editor. The chief editor tried to persuade me to stay, suggesting we talk in a private room. I love this job, and I love the comic artists I work with. But it's become too difficult to continue working here under these circumstances. Then the chief editor said to me, "To be honest, losing you would hurt more than losing those two. Won't you reconsider?" Of course, it appeared that those two were not very well regarded. "I appreciate your kind words, but I think I need some time to relax my mind and body." I declined the offer. I visited each comic artist I was in charge of to inform them of my resignation, bringing gifts. They were all disappointed. And some said they'd like to work with me again if I ever moved to another publishing company. And they finished their current series. Mr. Stone felt guilty for being part of the reason I was leaving and apologized so much I felt bad. "I was really happy to work with you, so it's a big disappointment for me." I truly felt that way. His popularity was finally increasing, and I wished I could have continued to support him more. Then Mr. Stone said, If you don't already have plans for future work, I was wondering if you might consider doing something like a manager for me? What? Ever since you took over, work has been so much easier for me. I've gotten used to it, and I don't think I can manage without you. I can offer you the same salary you're getting now. But if you were getting a lot more, I might not be able to match it. His invitation was awkward but sincere, and he was a comic artist I greatly admired. Of course. If you think I'm up to the task, I'd be happy to help. And so, I became Mr. Stone's manager. The salary I was receiving was much less than Mr. Stone had expected, so there was no issue there. Mr. Stone might seem absent-minded at times, but he never compromises when it comes to his comic. Working together, it became evident how much he loves his craft and his own works. And I found myself liking him even more. The person who took over my former duties was a senior male colleague who had helped me when I was new. I never imagined Jenny would become a manager. Mr. Stone's work has been even better lately, so it makes sense now. Keep up the good work. I won't say too much, but eventually, the editorial department will hear about you being here. In such a tight-knit industry, I knew this would happen, but it didn't bother me. I was focused on creating good work with Mr. Stone. One day, Mr. Stone said excitedly, "Hey, Jenny. Lately, girl characters have been gaining in popularity. It's thanks to you. Your advice really helped. In Mr. Stone's manga, I thought the boys were really cool, but the girls were somewhat lacking in personality. I really don't understand female psychology at all, so it's a huge help. This flirty character, for instance, I thought would be annoying, but it's fun to draw, and surprisingly popular. Right. In a comic book, the cleverness of the characters may be more poignant. In real life, I would hate it if I had one around me though." That character was modeled after Katie, our former colleague. Hearing this, Mr. Stone laughed heartily. I see. I see. That's her, as if he just understood a joke. This girl character is modeled after you, right? What? No, that's not me. She's more like an ideal woman to me. Is that so? I always thought this character resembled you and was lovely. That's why I put a lot of effort into drawing her. Really? I was touched to learn he saw me in such a way, and it made my heart race. Wondering how this was any different from a confession. Does that mean you think I'm lovely? Did I say that? Oh, I did say that. Sorry. Is that weird? Seeing him become embarrassed and downcast, I found him endearing. Not at all. I not only love your comic, but I also admire and like everything about you, including your attitude toward work. Although Mr. Stone might look bearish, to me, he was far more charming than Patrick ever was. His comic sales were booming, and an anime adaptation had been confirmed. The media attention and interviews had increased. As his manager, these were happy problems to have. I had nearly forgotten about Patrick and Katie, but I had to visit the editorial office for some business. Right, they got married, didn't they? Thinking this, I went to the editorial department and saw Katie, now visibly pregnant. Long time no see. I greeted her cheerfully, but she just glanced at me and walked away. After delivering some documents related to rights to the chief editor and being invited for coffee, we moved to the cafeteria. It's been tough since you left. He sighed deeply. The hitmaker comic artist that Katie was in charge of got furious. What? That artist who would be fine no matter who was in charge. I was surprised. Despite being an exceptionally stable manga artist, who hardly needed anything beyond manuscript collection and occasional snacks. It seems she managed to upset the artist by suggesting a switch to digital art. Saying things like, "Why don't you work digitally? Everyone's doing it these days." I had to profusely apologize, and now I'm taking over. Katie is on document organization duty. Well, she's not exactly excelling at that either. But we can't just fire her for incompetence. She's fully intending to take maternity and parental leave, said the chief editor, sighing again. Patrick hasn't been getting great feedback either. I had him take over a veteran manga artist you used to handle. But comparisons with you are inevitable. Complaints about him not being attentive or slow at work keep coming to me, he said, his shoulders drooping. As much as I pity them, there's not much I can do. I was relieved to hear that the newcomers are being managed by a competent desk. Passing by the documentation room, I saw them chatting. Clearly not working. Patrick saw me, long time no see. You're doing well. Thanks to you. With the anime and possibly a game adaptation, it's been hectic but fulfilling. Patrick clicked his tongue in response. I couldn't believe I had once been engaged to such a man. Oh, by the way, I'm getting married to Mr. Stone. I'll be supporting him as both a manager and partner from now on. What? You're lying. Mr. Stone's been making a fortune recently. Katie reacted to that part, which was disappointing. Neither of them said congratulations. Instead, Katie complained that was supposed to be my job. That's so unfair. I decided to fib a bit. Well, we're planning a lavish wedding and reception. For our honeymoon, we're thinking of a world tour, and we might buy a high-rise condo, I said, showing off a large gemstone engagement ring. The ring was the only truth, the rest were spontaneous lies. Though, they weren't impossible dreams. Seeing Katie's genuinely frustrated face was satisfying. David's that bear-like uncool guy, right? He said this out of spite. What a small man. He's a wonderfully talented bear. Much better than you could ever be. That was the truth. Well, I wish you both happiness. As I walked away, I could hear them bickering behind me. Later, Katie was apparently sued for compensation by the wife of the older man she had previously dated. Turns out, he wasn't single. Patrick was saying, the baby might not be mine, but we won't know until the baby is born. With their incompetence at work and lack of motivation, plus this scandal, you'd think they'd have a hard time staying at the company. But knowing them, who knows? Either way, I couldn't see a bright and happy future for them. A grand wedding, a world tour, a high-rise condo? Shall we go all out? Mr. Stone joked after hearing my story. You don't like being the center of attention, right? I'm drawn to the world tour idea. But I don't want to disappoint our readers by taking a long break. As for living arrangements, anywhere is fine by me. Got it. Then, after the current series ends, let's take a super long vacation and travel the world. That sounds great. We'll take lots of photos for reference. You're really the role model for all editors. But you can be a bit more selfish now that you're my wife, he said, offering more support than I could have asked for. Just creating worlds together in comics was enough to make me happy. If I got any happier, I felt like I might spoil. It's like a miracle. By the way, the family home of David Stone is a stonemasonry business. About the funeral matter. Funeral? I'm busy with work, so just handle it yourself. Isn't that all your responsibility anyway? How can he act like a complete stranger when our daughter passed away? At the age of 10 due to illness? Even after our daughter was given a terminal diagnosis, he never spent time for her. I realized it was no use expecting anything from him anymore. I arranged the funeral myself, said my final goodbyes to our daughter, and returned home. Sitting alone at the table where we often ate together, I slumped down, overwhelmed by the reality that she was truly gone. Hey. What are you spacing out for? Make sure this suit gets cleaned. You're practically a maid around here, so you might as well do that much. While hurling insults and throwing the suit at me, I had no mental energy to argue with my husband. And now that our daughter was gone, I saw no need to stay with him any longer. Then, what's this? A divorce paper. Inside the pocket of the suit he threw, I found a completed divorce form. So, he meant for me to submit this to the city office as well? Understood. I went to the city office on my own and submitted the divorce form. A month later, we went to my in-laws' house to gather with the relatives. However, the scene there left my husband speechless in shock. My name is Sandra, and I'm currently living happily with my husband and our 5-year-old daughter. I work part-time while taking care of our daughter, though I used to be a stay-at-home mom. But that life fell apart when our daughter turned 4. There's something I need to talk to you about our daughter. What's so formal all of a sudden? What's going on? She's been getting sick easily over the past year and always says she feels tired. I thought it was strange, so I took her to the hospital today, and it turns out she's ill. The discovery of her illness was a shock to me, too, and hard to accept. Later, after further testing, it was confirmed that our daughter had a chronic disease. There are few cases of it, so there's no established treatment. One clear fact is that children who develop this disease tend to lose their lives around the age of 10. What are you talking about? Is that true? That can't be. Maybe there was a mistake in the tests, a diagnostic error or something? I wish that were the case. But she's had a detailed examination at a major hospital. We have no choice but to accept it. No way. I'll never accept that. He stormed back to his room, breathing heavily. The door slammed shut with such force that it echoed loudly in the living room. I couldn't say anything to my husband, but I could somewhat understand his feelings. When I heard the news at the hospital, I became emotional and yelled at the doctor. It was unthinkable that our daughter would die so young. Objectively, it's odd to say such things after tests, but as a parent, it was hard to accept. Why? Why out of all the children in the world, did it have to be our daughter? Thinking about it didn't solve anything and only made me cry more. I couldn't control my emotions. Mommy. I want to go to the park today. Let's take Daddy with us. Daddy is busy with work, so let's go, just the two of us. I hadn't told our young daughter about her illness, but every time she innocently asked to play, it felt like my heart was being torn apart. This feeling never changed no matter how much time passed. Knowing our 5-year-old daughter had only 5 more years to live kept me up at night. And when I did manage to sleep, I was often plagued by nightmares. But dwelling on the unchangeable facts was pointless. If we only have 5 years left. I swore in my heart that we would cherish every second of those 5 years together. Hello? Stop calling me so many times. I told you, when I'm late, it's because of work or a drinking party. Wait a moment. Today is her birthday, why are you at a drinking party? You should take care of that. If I don't attend the company's drinking parties, they'll think I'm not a team player. Not a team player. What's the problem with that? Is the company's reputation more important than celebrating the limited birthdays we have left with our daughter? Don't joke about this. Our daughter is not like other children. She doesn't have decades left to live and celebrate dozens of birthdays. I wish he would cherish each day, but instead, He prioritizes company drinking parties and golf with his boss, neglecting our family for his own interests. I've overlooked some things until now, but ignoring her birthday was unforgivable. Enough already. It's only once a year, and you can go to drinking parties anytime. Making you prioritize that over our daughter's birthday. The people in the company are good for nothing. Don't talk like you know everything when you're just a stay-at-home mom who knows nothing about the company. Indeed, I don't know what his company is like or what his position there entails. However, is there anything more important than our daughter's birthday in our family? I can't understand that, nor do I want to. Is this really all his feelings for his daughter amount to? That's what I ended up thinking. To outsiders, I might look like a wife who doesn't understand her husband's job. But I don't care about that. What's most important to us now is our daughter's presence. And I will outright reject any excuse from a husband who won't prioritize that. Don't bother coming back home. Shut up. Then I'll just do as I please. He became infuriated, not caring about our daughter. But I no longer cared. My daughter was looking forward to spending her birthday with him. But I told her everything without holding back. We went to the restaurant I had reserved and had a wonderful birthday together. But my husband didn't return until the next morning. Where have you been until this time? You told me to do as I please, didn't you? So what's wrong with that? You've never even accompanied her to the hospital, and lately, it's been all about yourself. What do you think of your family? To be honest, I have my own life. And since you're the stay-at-home mom, child rearing is your job, so don't push it onto me. Was he just saying hurtful things because he was angry, or was it his true feeling? I couldn't tell, and I didn't want to believe it was the latter. But his actions were always self-prioritized, not for his daughter or our family. Why can't he prioritize our daughter, who has so little time left? I was mentally exhausted thinking about our daughter. And I thought he was the only one who would understand and support me. But gradually, our relationship went cold. Happy birthday, Mom. I guess Dad doesn't care about birthdays and would rather go out drinking as usual. Yes. But having you celebrate is enough for me. I'm happy to hear that. I don't know how many more times I can celebrate your birthday, but I'll always be on your side. My daughter turned 8, understood her illness, and accepted that she wouldn't live long. Yet, she always smiled and was my emotional support. My husband continued to leave the house on his days off and wouldn't return until morning. He even began to skimp on our daughter's medical expenses. So I reluctantly started working part-time. Honestly speaking, I wanted to spend more time with my daughter. Especially since she was receiving home care and would be alone while I worked. Yet, when I returned from work, my daughter would have prepared a simple meal or baked cookies, waiting for me. Living with just the two of us became irreplaceable to me. 2 more years passed, and one day, after my daughter turned 10, cough. Cough. Are you okay? You've been feeling unwell lately. After I finish work today, shall we go to the hospital together?
Yeah.
The doctor had given her a life expectancy of 10 years. I knew it was coming, but as her condition worsened day by day, I found myself crying daily. When will it come? When will it be time? I fought with those feelings every day, and my heart was nearly breaking. But as long as my daughter still had warmth in her hands, I never showed her a sad face. Mom. Can I talk to you for a moment? What's wrong? I was talking with the doctor, and he said I don't have much longer. I'm totally fine with it, but I'm worried about you being alone after I'm gone. You know, with Dad and everything. My daughter had truly grown up emotionally, and I hadn't expected her to be comforting me. I tried not to show sadness in front of her, but she saw right through me. Really? As a mother, am I failing? It's hardest on my daughter, yet I'm making her worry about me. But when she said that, I couldn't hold back my tears anymore. I'm sorry for making you worry about me. Mom, don't apologize. I'm not blaming you for anything. But there's something I need to talk about, Dad. I was surprised by what my daughter said about her father. At her age, she was seriously considering what would happen after she departed. Especially since the relationship between my husband and me had grown cold. I felt truly sorry, but I decided to devote my time and effort to my daughter while she was still here. Half a year later. I'm sorry to say this. My daughter's condition suddenly worsened, and she had been hospitalized for about a week. Watching her weaken day by day was excruciating. But I took leave from my part-time job to be by her side for the last week. I was prepared. I knew she didn't have much longer, and there was nothing I could do. But when I held my daughter's cold hand, it felt as though a hole had been punched through my heart. The one who was my sole reason for living, the most precious person in my world, was gone. I couldn't accept that reality at all, thinking that I wanted to go to her. And that there's no point in being alive. But that's not what my daughter would have wanted. I had to live strongly, so that I could be greeted with a smile when we meet again in heaven decades later. There's the funeral to prepare for. Just handle it yourself, I'm busy. Even though our daughter had passed away, my husband showed no emotion. It wasn't that he was suppressing his feelings, but he truly didn't feel anything. He had long since stopped caring about our family, let alone his beloved daughter. Well, she wasn't beloved to him, I suppose. I did all the funeral arrangements in place of my husband, who wouldn't help at all. Hey. You did wash the suit, right? What? I don't know. That's your own responsibility, isn't it? You're practically a housemaid, so it's obvious you should do all that. What does he think I am? A housemaid. I never intended to become your maid. What does he think he is? I thought, but arguing about it now was pointless. Besides, I hadn't yet sent my daughter off to heaven. Honestly, since he had been indifferent to our daughter all this time. He didn't need to attend the funeral, but if he was going to, then so be it. Despite being busy with various arrangements, I managed to get through the funeral. Then, I returned home. The house, now empty of my daughter, was eerily silent, reminding me she had truly departed. As I sat at the table where we often ate together, my husband's voice cut through the silence. Hey. Get this suit cleaned up quickly. You're like a maid, so it's your job to do that. Saying this, he threw the suit he had been wearing at me. Maid, again. He's always looked down on me like that. Well, it doesn't matter anymore. I thought, as I went to fold the suit he had thrown. A piece of paper fell out of the pocket. What's this? A divorce form. It was a completed divorce form. I was puzzled, but, so, he wants a divorce too. He threw it in my direction, which must mean he wants me to sign it and submit it to the city office. I had been planning to divorce anyway, and I'll happily submit it. I signed it that day and went to the nearest city office to file it. A month later, I went with my ex-husband to his parents' house. Though we were supposed to gather with relatives. Only the four of us were planned to meet since my parents had already passed away. However, when we arrived at his family home, there was another young woman there. What? No. What's this about? What do you mean? Shouldn't you be happy since the person you truly love is here? When I told my ex-husband that, he looked utterly confused. Of course, he would be. It's been a month, and we were supposed to meet with family. Yet here was his mistress. Who invited her, and for what purpose? He must have been frantically trying to figure it out. But before he could understand the situation, I started to speak. Did you really think it wouldn't come out? I already know about your affair. Ignoring your family to have fun with your mistress. It's despicable. Wait a minute. What's happening here? Don't play dumb. You told me we'd get married. To think I was just a mistress, that's the lowest of the low. As my ex-husband was being accused by me and his mistress. He looked completely lost, but this was all planned. Rewinding to when my daughter was still with us. She told me something unbelievable. Dad's probably having an affair. I heard him whispering on the phone in the middle of the night when I went to the bathroom. An affair. Yeah. I couldn't say anything to Dad, but when I'm gone. And it's just you and Dad, I want you to be happy. I was shocked and couldn't believe it when I heard this. Indeed, my ex-husband had neglected our family. But he seemed serious about his work and I thought he would never truly betray us in that sense. However, believing my daughter's words and doing a little investigation, the affair was confirmed. And the mistress was a junior at his company. Since they were from different departments, it might not have been known that my ex-husband was married. It was utterly ridiculous. Neglecting his daughter to have fun was unforgivable. But, with my daughter's unstable condition, I didn't want to be distracted by a divorce or demanding compensation. So I decided to settle everything after seeing my daughter's end. There was a completed divorce form in the pocket of your suit. You were planning to divorce me soon, right? That's... Well... But I've had everything investigated using a detective. You were planning to sell the house under my name and take that as part of the assets division. Weren't you? No, well. As I said this, my husband's eyes began to dart around. It must have hit the mark. The house where the three of us lived was inherited from my parents. The house had 2 children's rooms, left to us by my parents, who thought they would be useful for raising a family in the future. But now that our daughter has passed away, we no longer need such a large house. I had mentioned selling it to my husband. So his plan was to sell the house before we divorced. And then take half of the proceeds as part of the division of assets. I did intend to sell the house, but did you really think I'd let the money go to you? Even if there had been no affair, why would I reward you, who never cared for your family? Only did as you pleased, and made our daughter sad? As for the divorce papers, I've already filled them out and submitted them. Wait a minute. You've already submitted them? Yes, I have. You should be thanking me, actually. You wanted to marry a younger woman, so I've spared you the trouble without any complaints. The ex-husband, pale-faced, sank down on the spot, staring at me with his mouth open. His plans utterly ruined, filled with despair. But I wasn't the only victim of his actions. You're the worst for not only cheating me, but making your daughter sad while she was dying. How do you plan to take responsibility? Just shut up. What? You deceive people and don't even apologize? Quiet. Let me think. Think? What is there to think about? There's no way to fix this situation, and thinking is just a waste of time. Besides, why did I go out of my way to invite the mistress here and expose everything? He hasn't realized anything. You've really done the lowest of the low. You're no son of ours. To do this to your own daughter. What kind of human are you? I believe the ex-husband's parents, who adored their granddaughter from birth, were angrier than anyone else at his actions. Living quite far, they didn't come to see our daughter so frequently. About once every 6 months, and my daughter loved them dearly. We're cutting ties with you. And we've arranged for all the property to be inherited by Sandra. We want her to live well, for the sake of our granddaughter who has gone to heaven. Huh? What are you talking about? That's irrelevant. What's happening now has nothing to do with the properties you own. That's how you always are, getting all excited about money. Do you even have human blood in your veins? Pay the adultery compensation and live with that guilt for the rest of your life. That's how you can atone for your sins. Just before our daughter passed away, I used the money I saved from my part-time job to buy her a smartphone. She seems to have been in contact with her grandparents through it, and they heard about what was happening when they came for the funeral. I never wanted or intended to inherit my in-laws' property, but they loved their granddaughter more than anyone. That's why they wanted me, who had always been there for their beloved granddaughter, to live a good life. They said it would be much better to leave their estate to me than to my ex-husband. That's ridiculous. Are you trying to take everything from me? First of all, it's your fault our daughter was born with an illness. It was because of something wrong with your body that she wasn't born healthy. Don't say such ridiculous things. No matter what handicap she was born with, she was still your child. You're the one who neglected your responsibility and turned away from reality. A father and a husband who couldn't protect his family and just played around has no right to complain. Seeing my usually gentle in-laws so furiously angry, I guess they're deeply disappointed in what my ex-husband has done. But in a way, this was what our daughter wanted. In the end, she told me to move on with my life, assuring me she'd watch over me from the sky. It wasn't about fixing the relationship with my ex-husband, but my daughter wanted me to start a new life. A fitting end for a husband abandoned even by his daughter, I think. We have nothing more to say to you. We don't want you to contact us anymore, and even if you come back, you won't be crossing this threshold again. I'm going to sue you for compensation. And I'll expose everything to your company. People like you deserve to go to hell. Wait, please. Calm down. I was struggling mentally. I couldn't bear the situation with our daughter. I couldn't accept such a painful reality. So I was looking for emotional support. Understand me. Struggling and looking for emotional support? Who do you think suffered the most? It wasn't you, me, or the in-laws. It was our daughter herself. Do you have any idea how much she suffered? Keeping her pain hidden after realizing her illness until her last moment? And yet, you dare say such nonsensical things at the very end. If you say anything more ridiculous, I'll make sure you'll never speak again. What? Playing the victim now, are you? Is that what a father is supposed to say? You're just a piece of trash trying to justify your actions by pretending to be the victim. As I grabbed my ex-husband by the collar and told him off, he looked away and fell silent. Of course, we're divorced now, so there's no reason for me to let you into my home. I'll pack your belongings and leave them outside. Stay away from now on. After saying that, I gave a slight nod to the in-laws and left. Over the following days, I was busy searching jobs and suing my ex-husband for compensation. With the help of the in-laws and a lawyer, I managed to settle everything in about half a year. The house we lived in was sold, and now I live alone in a new apartment. Since the mistress was also deceived, I sued only my ex-husband for the affair compensation. As for my ex-husband, he ended up being sued for compensation by both me and his mistress, incurring a huge debt to settle those payments. Later, everything was exposed to his company by the mistress, leading to his resignation and loss of place. Being abandoned by the in-laws and mentally disturbed, he has been unable to find re-employment, burdened by his debts. But I made sure to spread the truth through mutual acquaintances, so no one is willing to help him. The world is not fair. Illness, accidents, incidents, anyone could be the victim. Whether it's a stranger, a loved one, or oneself. No one can defy one's fate, and all we can do is cherish the remaining time to dedicate ourselves to those we should protect and love. Scum that prioritizes only their desires over everything else will face a fitting end. I will continue to live diligently every day, not to disappoint my daughter watching over me from heaven. Staying true to the path of a decent human being.